Welcome back, questing champions. This is For Azeroth, the podcast all about Warcraft with me, Garrett Weinzerl, and her, Jocelyn Moffat. Welcome back, Jocelyn. We're here on a Monday, pretty much at a normal time. It feels good to not be. Well, mostly, it just feels good not to be dying.
Yeah, that's true. We've had a few rough weeks, really.
Yeah. It's been
in terms of sicknesses and reschedulings, and I don't think we've recorded on Monday at our normal time for about 3 weeks.
No, we really didn't. I think we took a week off, and then we took a whole week off because you were sick, and then we did last week's episode late.
Yeah.
But and then also today, yesterday I got home from the fireside for all weekend. I'm like, oh crap, tomorrow's Monday. Oh, I hope Jocelyn knows what she's doing for Azeroth. And then I noticed I missed a tweet from you really late. And you're like, hey, are we even doing this tomorrow? Tomorrow's President's Day. I'm like, nobody does anything on President's Day in America.
I don't know. It's a holiday for us up here, too, except we call it Family Day. But it's basically a made-up holiday in February.
Gotcha.
So I wasn't sure if you guys actually did anything. I knew you were in Orlando. I thought you took maybe a long weekend. I didn't know. I was just checking.
All right. Fair enough. I appreciate the concern, but no. I would like this. I would like to see that represented in World of Warcraft, personally. I would like to see, we go around, we go to the Hall of Presidents in World of Warcraft, and it's like the Disney attraction, but there's, sculptures of Thrall and King Tyrannus and other leaders that I'm forgetting.
Varian, Sylvanas.
Yeah. I guess it only makes sense if they're dead, right? So then it's Cairn, Tyrannus,
Garrosh,
Lothar,
Varian again.
Varian, yeah, Varian. Too soon, Jocelyn. Too soon. What would you just start sculpting the marble immediately after you're like, Varian's dead? All right, I've been waiting my whole life for this. Tink, 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 tink. That'd be.
And technically, Sylvanas is dead. She's back again, but she is dead.
Actually, that's a really good point. Maybe the Hall of Presidents in World of Warcraft would just be a bunch of currently living but undead leaders just hanging around in their zombified forms, being like, "I don't know why you're here. We can talk to you." It'd be like the heads in jars in Futurama.
That would be actually excellent.
Yeah, I'd be...
Sylvanas uses all of her, Valkyrie power just to res the dead president so they can stand there talking to explorers. I love it.
I'm using my power to bring...
my people, or...
Yeah, I'm using my great power to resurrect the dead for educational purposes. Gotta get your parents to sign that form so you can go on the field trip to the Undead Talking President Museum, kids. All right, this bit has gone on too far. I think we can get into talking about WoW specifically. What's been going on? What's been going on with you, Joss?
Well, unfortunately, we kind of have to start off this section on a little bit of a somber and sad note. My loving condolences go out to everyone in AIE. We lost a very great friend last week, and unfortunately, since the family has not been fully notified, we can't actually release the name. So I do apologize. I know it's very frustrating to a lot of people who don't know exactly what's going on, but basically just share the love and send the hugs to all of your members of AIE because there are a lot of people who are grieving right now. So we offer our love and condolences. And it was a bit of a rough weekend. Spent some time in Northern Barrens and gave out lots of hugs with my Horde balloon at the Shrine of the Fallen Soldier or Fallen Warrior. Sorry, not soldier. And it was a rough Saturday.
Yeah, I didn't know this person personally, but heard a lot about them, and kind of felt like I knew them vicariously through many members of AIE and many very close friends of mine through the podcasting realm. So when I heard this person passed, it put quite the dour note. I would say fortunate enough to be admitting the Hearthstone tournament at the Fireside this weekend, which kind of kept me my mind on work, which is always I find a helpful thing when stuff like this happens. But yeah, I obviously would like to extend my condolences as well, because what do you say? This has happened. This has come up in my life multiple times already this year with personal friends and family passing away, and I really don't know what else to say. You said it, Joss. Hug somebody you love. Really bask in your friendships that you've made in life through the game, with your family, because that's what's important. These types of events put things in perspective, and use it, fuel it for good. Use it as fuel for positivity in your life. So there is, like I said, I'm terrible at these things.
I didn't want to cut you off,
Yeah.
so
No.
plus pulling myself together a little bit, but
yeah. So we should do what I would hope anyone in the circle would want us to do, which is do our best to continue talking about silly things like World of Warcraft, and maybe ridiculous moose mounts. Have you received your ridiculous moose mount, Jocelyn?
I have. It was a mount-filled weekend for me. I got both my Spooky Moose Ghost, and I'm totally blank. It's like a Caro or something like that is his name, and he was the mount that you get from doing all the archaeology in High Mountain, and he totally got the Varian Rin treatment because there are literally 600 fragments of him spread all over High Mountain, which I don't know who would do that to a poor little moose, but he was everywhere.
Oh geez, don't do archaeology, so I didn't know that was a thing. But that's when you try and extrapolate that's kind of a disturbing thought.
Yes, it was. So yeah, there were 600 fragments of the moose that you had to collect in order to put his spirit to rest. And then when you put his spirit to rest, then you get to ride him. So he's not really resting.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds like servitude for eternity to me.
It kind of does. Just to, be summoned at my beck and call for the rest of however long WoW is a thing.
All right then. Well, it is a cool looking mount. Not enough to make
It is very cool.
Not enough to make me personally want to go and take up archaeology for the first time ever and grind it out. But hey, I'm glad you have it. I'm glad you have your Sparkle Moose.
It did take probably like 3-ish hours, I think, is a good average. Some have done it in as little as 2, some have done it in as much as 4, but it will be made a whole lot easier once flying in. I was going to say Northrend. I totally have Northrend on the brain today, probably because of what our lore segment's going to be. But
I can only imagine.
In High Mountain. So yeah, once you can actually fly in High Mountain, this quest will be a lot easier, which probably the next time it comes up, flying will actually be available. You can still, if you're listening to the sound of my voice, you can still get the quest today, Monday, and you have, I believe, then 7 more days to finish it, because technically you can take 14 days to finish an archaeology quest as long as you don't pick up the next one. So basically your High Mountain dig sites will be active as long as you're on this quest. So if you manage to get the quest before it rolls over tomorrow, then you do have next week to finish your fragment collecting as well.
Oh, cool. You did say mounts plural. So what other mounts did you accrue?
I also played my 15 Heroes of the Storm games with a friend playing Warcraft characters and acquired my Fiery Saber mount. I believe it's
nice.
Actually the Primal Flame Saber is its actual name, but man, that thing's so cool looking. And literally just last week I was thinking, man, I wish my Fire Mage had a cool fiery mount to ride. Now she does.
Done and done. You mean you, Jocelyn Moffat, do not have the Ashes of Alar?
I do not.
Wow. That just seemed to me like something you, knowing you and the type of person you are, that you would just grind every week until you got it.
I've only actually ever run that raid probably like 10 times maybe.
Oh, okay. I guess
grinding for other things, mostly for pets, but I mean, there are people who have literally been doing exactly that, grinding it every week since it's been available and are only getting it now.
Yep. It happens.
So it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? I have terrible luck and the drop rate is so low that I can probably, my time is better spent in other places, like 15 games in Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, I actually haven't started on that quest yet because I've been mostly playing Heroes alone. But I have a feeling with the Heroes Charity Brawl this weekend, I will complete the majority of that requisite of playing Heroes games with my friends.
Yeah, so you have to play Heroes games with your friends, and then you have to play as a Warcraft character if you want to get credit for the quest. So,
Okay.
It doesn't matter what they're playing. Like, you don't have to be in a full party of Warcraft heroes, but you have to play as a Warcraft hero. But thankfully, there's a ton. I didn't even realize how many there were until I like clicked the Warcraft button and was like, okay, what like 6 characters do I have to pick from? But it's like 15. There's a lot of choice in all different roles. So I played some as Tyrande. I played some as ETC. I played, who else did I? I played one as Ragnaros, and I have vowed to never play Ragnaros ever again.
Why? He's ridiculously stupid powerful.
That's what everyone says, but I just kept dying. I couldn't get a hang of it. And I have like quick cast on, and it didn't work the way I thought it would work, and it took me way too long to figure it out on him, where like you're throwing your big boulder thingy, and I couldn't figure out how to make that work with the quick cast on. And then I didn't have time to change all my key bindings and stuff because we were in the middle of a quick match. So I was just like, well, I'm just going to be terrible. I'm sorry, guys.
Fair enough. But yeah, actually, while I'm mentioning it, folks, if you want to check it out, the Heroes Charity Brawl is going to be this Saturday, February 25th, if you're listening to this at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There's a ton of Heroes podcasts and podcasters getting together to stream for charity. And all of the info can be found over at heroescharitybrawl.com. We did this last year. It was a riotous good fun. And Kyle Ferguson made me rage last year. So we'll see if he can do it again. See if he can do it again.
I think the most fun thing to watch was just you getting ragier and ragier and ragier.
Yep. I revert immediately back to like Smash Brothers college like days. Like you're just sitting on the sofa and your buddy's kicking your butt, and all you want to do is just scream in their ear about what a jerk their Kirby play is. That's what it boils down to for me. So everyone should go and check that out. I'm looking forward to it.
And so it's Heroes Charity Brawl, but what charity are you actually raising money for?
Oh, of course you asked me that off the top of the...
I'm sorry. I was just curious. I wasn't sure. I think was it Make-A-Wish?
I believe it's Make-A-Wish. It is Make-A-Wish. Okay. I didn't want to say it without being 100% sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it is Make-A-Wish. I was like, I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, it's totally Make-A-Wish.
Which is a fantastic charity to be raising money for. So good on you guys. I look forward to watching. And
I mean, if you like kids, I don't know if it's that good of a charity. I mean... Yes.
Garrett.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, that was the 2 mounts I picked up this weekend. So I've been riding both on different characters, and man, I really can't say enough about the Heroes mount. Like, it looks really, really cool in game. The Moose mount was pretty cool too, but the Heroes mount is freaking awesome. So if you guys, I think you have until March 13th, I believe, to actually unlock that. So you get a stim pack and a mount in Heroes as well. So there are multiple rewards for completing the 15 game quest. So very highly recommend it. Also did some time walking this weekend. Did Cata. Man, that freaking sucks as a healer.
Oh, Cata time walking?
Yeah, it's so punishing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. I've never healed, I don't think, any dungeons in Cata. And the very first time I ever time walked, I think it was Cata dungeons, and I was just like, man, this is easy. This is really flipping easy. So it's there's some bursts going on in there or something.
Well, I find time walking in general is easy, and Cata is the only set of dungeons where I've ever had people dying and problems with healing. And I was talking to friends about it in AIE, and they were just like, "Yeah, most of us quit healing in Cata because it was so bad." So, but it's still fun. Made it through. Did our 5 dungeons. So it was believe Nighthold raid gear that was the reward. So. Probably going to do it on a couple of other characters later on today, but
I'd like to try and knock that out. That would be lovely.
Cool.
But Kyle
I still have to
coming
do it on my
town,
100.
and I don't know what time he's going to show up at my door, so I don't know if I'll actually be able to squeeze that in.
Well, we'll see. I'll be around all day. So, but yeah, so did some time walking on my paladin, and yeah, that was pretty much what I did this weekend, as well as going.
Oh, good. You were leading into it. I was about to say, I heard you guys kicked a little ass while I haven't been showing up.
Exactly. We're 6 of 10 in Nighthold now with Get Your Crit Together. So we finished up Star Augur last night, and we got so close to killing High Botanist. So close, like down to like 10%. And that boss, man, oh man, what a pain in the ass. He's
I've-
got 3 different phases, and the mechanics from each phase stack. So it's like in phase 1, you've got phase 1 mechanics. Phase 2, you've got 1 and 2, and then phase 3 is just a big giant shit show.
Yeah, I've only done it in LFR, so I know the mechanics you're talking about, but I also know them as I'll live. I'll be fine. And if I won't, I'll pop anti-magic shell and I'll continue being fine.
Yeah, it's basically if you fail at any point in time on killing the first 2 mobs that spawn and like focus down a person, as soon as those mobs start multiplying, it's a wipe.
Okay.
Which on LFR, it's just kind of like, more flowers, pretty.
Yeah, it's funny because, DBM doesn't really alter its self in terms of its, like, the severity in which it is warning you of things for LFR. So it's like, oh my god, the ad is targeting you, run for your life. And I'm just sitting there like, it's a mile away and it's at, like, 10% health. I'm fine. It's not going to make it to me.
Yep. But they do move quite fast, and like I said, on normal, it can definitely lead to a wipe if you don't get those first 2 ads down. So
Yeah.
when especially in the 3rd phase, when you're trying to balance all of the other mechanics along with the fact that you've got these flowers spawning as well, it's a nightmare. But we did get it down to, I think our lowest was something around 10 or 15%. So we did pretty okay, but it's punishing, as quite a few of the bosses in Nighthold have been so far. They've been quite punishing because our group runs with basically 10 to 12 people. We have a really small group, and for splitting some of the damage and some of the effects and things, it's really hard with only a couple of people in each group. So, but yeah, it was good. It was a good fun night. And we're aiming to finish those first 6 bosses now that we've got the mechanics down. We're looking to finish those first 6 on Tuesday and then push on for the last 4 on Sunday. So yeah, I'm looking at maybe possibly making our way to Elisond in the next couple of weeks.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it because I will be back this week. There's no stupid things like Valentine's or anything happening to keep me away from World of Warcraft. But apparently I'll be tanking for you on Tuesday. So just a warning. You might not get as far as you hoped because I've never tanked any of these encounters. Although it looks like they're pretty simple. I've got my notes drawn up for the first 2, and I've been poking Civ, going back and forth. So I think we'll be okay. I can count to a certain number and hit taunt. I'm pretty good at that.
I was gonna say, I think there's about 3 of the bosses where you need to do an actual tank swap, and then on the other bosses you just have to grab the ads when they come out. So
okay, so it's just gonna be Wrath of the Lich King all over again. Even though I'm not a paladin anymore, I'm still a Death Knight. So it's gonna be like, oh cool, there are ads, just grab them.
Yeah, basically
you're on cleanup duty.
That's how I understand it anyway, as a total non-tank. But I mean, we do have Civ. Civ's going to be there, so he's our main tank anyway. So at least you don't have to take over main tank roles.
Yeah. So it's okay. It's okay. And I literally am making notes. Like, I'm like, okay, all right, this boss, I got to do this or that, and yada yada yada. So hopefully it'll go okay.
I have faith in you, Garrett. I think that you will be awesome.
Oh, thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you. I'll also be slow at getting things done because I finally, Jocelyn, as of this morning, have finished my Broken Isles Explorer quest.
Yay!
Or achievement, I guess. It's not a quest, it's an achievement.
Yeah.
So thank you, you stupid Hunter class hall.
I thought I told you about the Hunter class
you
hall.
You did. I just,
Okay.
it took me a while to get around to it. I started raiding with you, and I started, I started prioritizing getting gear as opposed to uncovering foggy parts of a map. So, sorry. The one I was going to mention it last week, and our show was going long, so I didn't even bring it up. But another one I had missed was a section of Stormheim called Watchman's Rock. That's super awesome. Why is it there? Like, there doesn't seem to be anything to do up there. I can't even get to like the super cool like torch statue thingy. I don't know what it is.
There is a quest line up there, and I think like you can. There's like the little island next to it, and you have to like grapple hook up onto the little island and then grapple hook up further. I can't exactly remember how you do it, but there's a quest line that ends up on top of that rock.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because I went up there. I'm like, well, I want to get up to the stone thing, and I tried. It seemed like it was a jumping puzzle or something. I couldn't get up there. Maybe I'm just stupid. I don't know. We'll be able to fly
Yeah, and
soon.
I can't remember. I had to ask someone in guild how to get up there when I first did it. And then once they told me, I was kind of like, "Oh, how did I miss that?" I was like running around the island in circles on my water strider and like trying the I remember it being simple once
Oh well, I got
once I
up
figured it out.
on like the island itself via the grappling pieces, but then like if you can't, I couldn't find a way to actually walk up to the big stone like monolithic thing up there. But I don't know. It looks cool. It's really cool. I want to know. I want to know more about it, and I can't. I probably have to do archaeology or something lame. So
Or something lame. I'm actually surprised that that big watcher statue didn't kind of factor in. There was no breadcrumb quest, at least so far, that has anything to do with it. Where we've done all the Helya and Stormheim stuff. Like,
yep.
I would have thought that we would have gotten some sort of blurb somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I also finally managed to get a neck upgrade that actually has haste on it.
Nice.
And from the rarest of possible drops, which is kindness from another human being in LFR.
Whoa.
I was running LFR, and by the way, we're doing botanist, and everyone is writing a book about how much everyone sucks during the botanist fight, while no one is dead, while numbers are totally fine, and botanist died in one shot. And then afterward, or I don't think it was after botanist because the neck doesn't drop off of botanist, but whatever the case, there's a lot of ill will in this LFR, and then I think it was actually off of Augur. The neck dropped, and someone's like, I already got this. I don't need it. And I click on it. I'm like, oh, haste, 15 item level upgrade. Me. And they gave it to me, and I thanked them profusely. So thank you,
Nice.
random stranger I'll probably never see again. Sincerely appreciate it. So there's that. Other than that, I did something really dumb, Jocelyn. I finally asked Blingtron 6000, where's the party?
I have never done that, Garrett. Please enlighten me. Where is the party?
Well, he asked. First, I think he asked if you want a party, and if you say yes, he gives you a pimp outfit.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, hold on. Well, where is it? And you click on it, and it says, are you sure you want to go to the party? It's probably very far away. And then I hit a loading screen, and I'm in the middle of the town outside of Karazhan, and a bunch of 110 mobs mob me and try to kill me. So I'm assuming it's a reference to One Night in Karazhan. That's all I can think of. And I've got a really good kick out of it, and I should have done it earlier.
That's as soon as you said that it might send me somewhere way far away. I'm like, I really hope it goes to Karazhan. I really hope you get to party with Medivh.
Well, there was no party. There was just
It was just death.
just the angry 110 mobs that are always there.
Aw.
But moving on to much more serious affair, what is the topic of lore today, Jocelyn, as I shake with excitement knowing full well what it is?
Oh, this is total Garrett fanboy day. We are finally going to tackle the making of a Lich King. We are going to talk about the early life of Arthas. I was like, no little squee? Oh, Garrett, I'm so disappointed.
No, it was more like a butt rock, like, yeah. 'Cause let's face it,
Sound a little bit like ETC there.
Arthas Menethil probably listens to like Korn or something.
You think so?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, like Disturbed or Korn or some other rap rock terribleness from the 90s.
Something really angry.
Yeah. Or maybe he's cool. He's not as cool as he thinks he is, and he listens to Limp Bizkit.
Hey!
I grew up with the two. It means I can make fun of it.
Fair enough.
But yeah. So I mean, so you're deciding to start with like his early life, and we're gonna break this up because there's a lot of stuff that happens if you're following Arthas's ascension to the Frozen Throne.
Well, that's the thing. There are so many of these kind of big characters in World of Warcraft. There's, Sylvanas, Jaina, Thrall, like just really, really big characters who have stories that go all the way through from like the RTS, like Warcraft RTS games, all the way through and are still currently alive in some cases in current World of Warcraft. So there are a lot of these very, very big, long stories that we have to tell. So we are going to have to break it up. We're going to take Arthas from his early life through until his acquisition of Frostmourne, and then we will do his actual ascension to the throne of Lich King in a later episode. We've got kind of a 6-ish episode plan to kind of tell the story of Arthas and everything that happened and bits and pieces from other lore characters in and around Arthas in this time. So yeah, today we're gonna talk about early life of Arthas, but we have a lot more to talk about in later episodes.
I think the important thing to note about like Arthas, like basically being born and his formative years, is that he was born into war. Pretty much, he like grew up in a war-torn human kingdom.
Yeah, he did, and he was born a prince, but still not. He very quickly joined some of the different branches of the armed forces. He was very much involved in the war, and lost friends and family, and saw the devastation caused by the orcs and all the rest of it. So he didn't have a necessarily easy childhood. But he did befriend Varian Wrynn, who you guys might have heard of. And basically what happened with them is that Varian was fleeing from Stormwind because of, all of the Gur-Arg war with the orcs.
That's actually what it's called.
The Gur-Arg
Many
Wars.
think it's called the sacking of Stormwind, but actually it's the Gur-Arg orcs of Stormwind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he was best friends with Varian and trained in combat by Muradin Bronzebeard, who you guys might be familiar with from Hearthstone, Heroes, any of those, but he's the brother. What? Why are you laughing at me?
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at him being trained by Muradin because I haven't read the Arthas book. Just for reasons. This always blows everyone's mind when I say this because I'm such an Arthas fanboy. But I find it hilarious.
It's one of my Christy Golden books that I don't enjoy. It's probably my least favorite, and that also blows people's minds. But
okay.
I find Arthas to be whiny and annoying. So a whole book of whiny and annoying Arthas.
Oh, yeah, well, then now I'm afraid to read it because, I just like him when he just goes pure evil and kills his friends and everyone around him, and it's just cool. He's basically Darth Vader. I don't want to know how he became Darth Vader because I've already had that question answered for me, and I don't like that one either. So
yeah.
But no, I find it funny that he was trained by Muradin because, like, the onus is on, like, there's so much emphasis on Arthas was a fantastic and adept swordsman. Muradin wields a giant clunky hammer and an axe.
Yep.
This doesn't make sense to me. How was he trained by Muradin and came out on the other end as an awesome swordsman?
Well, Muradin he's a great warrior, right? Just because he chooses to fight with a hammer and an axe doesn't mean he doesn't know how to use a sword.
It's World of Warcraft, Jocelyn. I think very, like, concrete. Like, I am this class, I can wield this weapon, not that other one. Like, that's...
Well, maybe you're just not as epic as Muradin.
I will concede that. I will concede that.
So yeah, Arthas goes through his training and becomes a very adept swordsman, and also is trained in the ways of the light under Uther the Lightbringer. He was inducted into the Knights of the Silver Hand, which we found out where the name the Silver Hand comes from. This is the Order of the Paladins. So he becomes inducted into the Knights of the Silver Hand in Stormwind City, which was attended by Jaina Proudmoore, whom he hadn't seen since childhood when she was passing through Lordaeron on her way to study in Dalaran. So this time, they didn't lose track of each other. They kept in touch and over the years grew to love one another. Arthas was openly courting her until he decided to break off the relationship so that Jaina could concentrate on her studies, which basically, like, devastated her and was, one of the big, horrible, negative things in her life. She's, Jaina, as much as I kind of, don't have a lot of patience for the way she's turned out, she also did not have it easy.
No, she really didn't. And you know what she didn't do? She didn't, like, murder an entire city's worth of people. She didn't murder her own father. She didn't become an agent of evil. Well, you know what? She wouldn't have made it to, like, the other horrors in her life if it was Arthas in her place, because he endured, like, a couple things, and he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna be pure evil. Like, give Jaina a break. Jaina's been through a lot, and she still hasn't gone full psycho.
That's true. So Arthas broke off his relationship with Jaina, and then was riding home from Nighthold Keep, and his horse Invincible had an accident which left him mortally wounded. The horse, not Arthas.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Then Arthas had to put his mount out of its misery, and that act haunted him for the rest of his life because he'd basically grown up riding Invincible. He was like a young child, and Invincible was a little pony, and then they grew up together.
Yeah, they grew up like side by side. Like he knew as a kid, like this will be your loyal steed when you go to be a force for good in the future, and instead he had to kill it himself.
Yeah.
And I have to go and try and farm the raid every week to try and get this horse for myself.
I was going to ask, have you actually found the reins of Invincible?
No, and you know how you should know that because it's not the only mount I ride, which would be the case if I actually had this mount.
Fair enough. So basically, after all the stuff with Jaina and after having to put his horse down, Arthas began fighting with the Alliance of Lordaeron because there were orcs who were escaping from internment camps. And so they were kind of traveling around putting down all of these orc rebellions. But there was a new threat rising in the background, which was the Plague of Undeath. So Arthas was joined by Jaina again, the scorned ex-girlfriend, which I'm sure that went over really, really well.
Yeah.
And Captain Felric, and they were sent to investigate the plague in the town of Brill. They fought against an undead army at a plague-infested granary before encountering the necromancer Kel'Thuzad. And the trio then pursued him over to Anderthal.
Yeah, this is still having skin Kel'Thuzad, by the way.
Yes. This is original, still alive, KT.
Yep.
So Kel'Thuzad had already infected the stored grain at Anderhall and shipped it out to the outlying villages. So before Arthas killed him, Kel'Thuzad spoke of Mal'Ganis, who was a Nazarene demon who led the Scourge. So Arthas and Jaina rode to Stratholme to confront Mal'Ganis. So they've now learned that not only is this a terrible, horrible plague, but also it's, I guess they didn't know at the time that it was technically the Burning Legion again, but they did know that there was a big demon behind all of this.
Yes, they also didn't know that like the leader of the undead was kind of working with the Legion, but really kind of just wanted to betray them for his own desires, yada, yada, yada. It gets delightfully not black and white the deeper we go into Arthas.
Yes, exactly. So Arthas and Jaina had stopped at Hearthglen hoping to rest, but were attacked by an undead army. So Arthas sent Jaina away to find Uther and ask for his help while he stayed behind to defend the town. But he realized while she was gone that the plague not only killed people, but then raised them back from the dead, which added to the size of the army. Thankfully, Uther and Jaina arrived with reinforcements just as Arthas was about to be overrun, and the three set off for Stratholme to attempt to stop Mal'Ganis. On their way, and this I think is super freaking cool, but on their way to Stratholme, Arthas was approached by a prophet in the shape of a raven who turned out to be Medivh, who warned Arthas not to continue on his current path, but to head to Kalimdor to face an even greater threat. But Arthas refused to abandon his people and continued to Stratholme. So those of you who have played Warcraft 3, I believe,
yep.
Medivh went and warned essentially all the great leaders of Azeroth, which included Arthas, Jaina, Thrall, Tyrande, and Malfurion as well, I believe. And I think the orcs, the night elves, and Jaina, with a kind of detachment of humans, all went over to Kalimdor, and they ended up fighting off the Legion in the Battle of Mount Hyjal. So had Arthas chosen to go with Jaina over to Kalimdor, then everything might have turned out quite differently. But unfortunately, it didn't. He continued on to Stratholme. And there's actually a really great in-game cinematic that you can experience if you do the Culling of Stratholme dungeon, which became available, I believe, in Cataclysm. Is that right? In the Caverns of Time?
No, Culling of Stratholme was the Caverns of Time in Wrath of the Lich King.
Oh, I didn't realize that the Caverns of Time were available. I thought that was a Cataclysm edition.
Caverns of Time came in Burning Crusade.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was actually how you had the Hyjal raid in Burning Crusade. It was a raid within the Caverns of Time.
Neat.
Yes.
I'm learning so many things from pre-Jocelyn World of Warcraft.
Yes, and I had to go run Black Morass because I needed my stupid Karazhan key in Burning Crusade, and that dungeon still to this day is stupid, and I don't want to run it anymore. I don't care if you get to see the opening of the Dark Portal.
Poor Garrett.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that 5-man at all.
But basically, when you run the Culling of Stratholme dungeon, you actually get to see the arrival of Arthas, Jaina, and Uther to Stratholme, and they realize that the plague grain has already been distributed to the people. Arthas knew that soon these diseased people were going to be turned to the undead, and so ordered Uther and his men to purge all the residents of the town in order to stop the spread of the plague. But Uther refused, saying that even if Arthas was king, he would never follow an order like that. So Arthas called this treason and dissolved the Knights of the Silver Hand. Several of his soldiers left with Uther, as did Jaina, and those that remained loyal to Arthas joined him in slaughtering the entire town of Stratholme.
Yes, and if you run Culling of Stratholme, you will be doing the slaughter. And if you're like me, you start to think maybe this wasn't so bad because Arthas tries to kill like one person who isn't corrupted at the very beginning, and then after that, you're pretty much just fighting zombies for the whole Culling. So I was like,
yeah, and I think that was a story choice by people, by the World of Warcraft team, because the Culling of Stratholme is Arthas killing the citizens. But I can see how, because I know that me personally, I would find it very difficult to kill. You know, there's a difference between like PvPing and killing humans who are also trying to kill you versus murdering a town of unarmed civilians. So I can see why the team at World of Warcraft decided that maybe that would be something they didn't want to depict, and having the town change into zombies during the dungeon made that a little bit easier on players, because it's definitely, as you realize that you have to be the one to go in and do the culling, it made me feel very uneasy anyways, until they started turning into zombies, and I was like, okay, zombies I can handle.
Can I just go with Jaina? I'm not on board with this.
Yeah, really. Eh? And so this is one of those decisions, though, and they did a lot of this with Illidan in the flashbacks in Legion, where you kind of realize that these characters that we've been almost taught to hate had the, I guess, greater good in mind when they did these kind of gray-ish moral, when they made these kind of gray moral choices. Because, I mean, you saw the same thing with Illidan murdering his Moonguard. He had to stop the Legion, and the only way to do it was to sacrifice a few. So he's basically sacrificing the few to save the many. And that's what Arthas thought that he was doing as well by culling the town of Stratholme. He was attempting to stop the plague. So it's these kind of great figures in World of Warcraft lore that are given these tough decisions. And you see essentially Jaina making her decision not to, Arthas making his decision to do the culling, and kind of then that's where their stories diverge, and you get to almost see both sides of what happened based on the decisions of those two characters. So now it's a polarizing event in the story of World of Warcraft.
Now I want another silly time travel expansion where it is a skewed timeline where Arthas listens to Medivh and everyone just goes to Kalimdor. Eastern Kingdoms is just overrun by the Scourge, and we get to see that play out.
Well, and so this is the thing, right? Is that, and we'll see a little bit later on. Regardless of whether Arthas actually did the culling at Stratholme, the fate of Eastern Kingdoms is very much the same. So it's kind of interesting that even if he had left, the Scourge still would have overtaken Eastern Kingdoms. Just it would have been in a different way than what ended up happening. So anyway, so back to the story. As Arthas is slaying the citizens of Stratholme, he was met by Mal'Ganis, who was working to claim all of the souls of the townsfolk. Arthas demanded a final showdown with the Dreadlord, but Mal'Ganis left. He was basically just like, nah, I'm good. Bye.
He turned into tiny little bats and disappeared.
Yep. But he did vow to meet Arthas in Northrend. And something that's, like we said, something snapped in Arthas that day, and his inability to stop the plague sent him down a cold and lonely path, because basically he had now done this super horrible thing. He had been abandoned by his love interest and his mentor in Jaina and Uther, and he was now completely on his own. Still on a crusade to attempt to save his people, but he had taken the darker path than
Yeah.
say Jaina and Uther.
It was, I mean, after Stratholme, after his friends basically just left him. I mean, that it makes sense. Like, I buy the character motivation to then just continue just going to Northrend and everything that happens after this, because he just so badly wants to justify his actions at Stratholme. So that's why he goes to Northrend.
Exactly. He essentially has nothing left to lose, so he gathers up a detachment of his troops, and they land in Daggercap Bay up in Northrend, and they come under gunfire before being recognized by the Dwarven Explorers Guild, who is led by none other than Muradin Bronzebeard. So at first, Muradin's like, "Oh, phew, you're here to rescue me. Thank you, Arthas." And Arthas is just like, I didn't actually know you were here." So total coincidence. But Muradin basically reveals that they had been besieged by an undead army while they were searching for Frostmourne. And so this is the first that Arthas actually hears of Frostmourne, but realizes that it's a weapon of great untold power, and that he will be able to essentially defend his people if he's able to help Muradin and locate Frostmourne.
Yes.
Since they have no signs of Mal'Ganis, they decide to go and look for the sword. Then, so after Muradin and Arthas have left the group, an emissary from Lordaeron arrives in a zeppelin and spoke to the men, saying basically he had orders from Uther and okay, how do you say his name?
Who? The
Tyrannus?
the king?
Yeah, the king.
Yeah, it's Tyrannus.
Tyrannus, okay, because I always say, when I think it Tyrannus, I'm like, that sounds like tyranny, like but he was a real kind and gentle, good, just king.
I think it's. I've always said it Tyrannus. I'm not 100% sure, but it's always been Tyrannus Menethil to me.
All right, well, it's going to be Tyrannus then. That's what we're going to say. So Uther and Tyrannus, basically instructing Arthas and his men to return home. So when Arthas returns to the base, all of the men were gone. They'd abandoned their posts because basically their king had told them to.
Yeah, they're prepping to go home. They're packing everything up, and this is the point, I think, as you're playing through Warcraft 3 the first time. If you're holding out any hope that Arthas is still the good guy, this is where it ends. Like, this very moment, because what he does next is he went and employing the help of mercenaries, burns all the boats to the ground. Is it to the ground when it's already in the water? It burns them down so they cannot be used, basically forcing everyone currently in Northrend to be, you want to go home? We got to take the fight to Mal'Ganis. It's the only option now if you want to survive. And on top of that, he blamed it all on the mercenaries that just helped him and just stood by while his men slaughtered them.
Yeah, which Muradin is not a big fan of, and basically confronts Arthas about it. And he says, "Look, I'm doing what I have to. Don't judge me. I need to save my people. We need to find the blade. It's the only way that we're going to be able to defeat the Scourge. So you're either with me or against me. And if you're against me, then good luck on your own out in Northrend." So Muradin sticks with him, and they go and seek out Frostmourne. And they basically, as he's arriving, Mal'Ganis appears to him again and foretells his death. Basically says, like, "Dude, you're screwed." Like
what are you doing?
Yeah. Which is kind of funny coming from who Arthas thinks is his greatest enemy right now. So they leave everyone at the camp, and they use an ancient waygate to travel to the vicinity of Frostmourne. And then Arthas is confronted by a guardian who is trying to keep him away from Frostmourne, apparently for his own protection. But Arthas is having none of that, slays the guardian, and continues on to the sword. So Muradin makes it into the cave first and reads an inscription under the blade, which is encased in ice, and says that the blade is cursed and pleads with Arthas to leave it alone and return home.
Yeah, which Arthas clearly listens to when they go back, and
everything is fine.
No. As is fairly well known by most Warcraft 3 nuts, he conjures basically the spirits of the cavern and releases Frostmourne from its icy prison. And one of the shards hits Muradin, and up until retconned old-ass Wrath of the Lich King, we all just assumed Muradin was dead.
Yes,
so did Arthas.
Basically, Arthas leaves Muradin for dead. He basically moves as if he's going to go and help Myrddin and check on him, but then the kind of voice of Frostmourne calls to him. He abandons his holy warhammer given to him at his ceremony when he was inducted into the Knights of the Silver Hand, lights vengeance, and picks up Frostmourne instead, and returns to his men, leaving Myrddin behind and assuming that he's dead.
Which you can actually still see to this day in World of Warcraft. If you go to Frostmourne Cavern up in Northrend, you can see his hammer just sitting there in the snow.
I'm kind of surprised, although I do love my holy paladin weapon, but I'm kind of surprised that we didn't have to go and recover Light's Vengeance as part of your, like, I'm surprised that's not one of the legendary weapons.
I am too, but also the paladins associated with, I kind of understand.
Yeah, I guess so, but I feel like being able to wield Light's Vengeance and, you know, like purging it of its kind of negative and dark past is a very paladin-y kind of thing to do. So
yeah, I would have liked it if for no other reason than because I would have liked a paladin wielding Light's Justice and me, a Frost Death Knight, wielding Shards of Frostmourne. I would like there to be an interaction between the artifacts.
That would have been super cool. I wonder, have you actually taken your Frost DK weapons to the cavern in Northrend?
No, but now I'm going to.
Because I feel like there are so many, especially for you as a Frost Death Knight, like there's so many little Easter eggs for you to find that I'm wondering if you go to where Frostmourne was actually taken up by Arthas, if there's a little Arthas cinematic being like, this is where it all went wrong. This is where my soul stays because it was the first one consumed by Frostmourne or something like that. That would just, I feel like that'd be super cool.
It would be super cool, but I'm not sure there's any artifact Easter eggs outside of Broken Isles. But you know what?
I'm not sure, but you should go check.
I'm going to do it. Nobody tell me. I'm just going to go do it because if nothing else, I want to go back to the cavern because it's cool. I still remember finding the cavern in Wrath of the Lich King, not knowing it was a thing, like not knowing it was something I could go access. And when I realized what it was, just being like, dude. So, which
I think we had an email about in one of our very first episodes with someone basically sharing his favorite WoW moment, and that was it, coming across the cavern and realizing who the basically totally lost and disoriented, no memory having dwarf was who is in that cave.
Yeah.
So very, very cool little Easter egg in there.
Very, very sweet. Very, very, very cool. So go see it if you haven't already, by the way.
I don't think I have. So I think I need to travel there anyways. But basically with Frostmourne in hand, Arthas then goes on to defeat Mal'Ganis. To defeat Mal'Ganis' army and finally confront the demon. Mal'Ganis told him that the voice that he was hearing from Frostmourne was actually that of the Lich King, and Arthas replied that the voice was instructing him to kill Mal'Ganis. And the Dreadlord was kind of like, what?
I love this part so much because, like, if you're playing through Warcraft 3, Mal'Ganis just keeps showing up and, like, being like, yeah, you can't kill me, you're gonna die, sucker. Mm-hmm. And when that little turn happens, you're just like, you're dead.
So essentially the Lich King is finished with Mal'Ganis. Mal'Ganis has done as much as he can do, and he's looking for a new lieutenant, essentially. So he uses Arthas to slay Mal'Ganis. And Arthas flees into Northrend, leaves his troops to fend for themselves, and basically loses the last remnants of his sanity. So by claiming the weapon, essentially, and betraying one of his oldest friends and slaying many of his men, Arthas became the first of the Lich King's Death Knights, and also his most powerful servant. Many of the men were raised to become Death Knights themselves in service of Arthas, so that when Arthas returned to Lordaeron months later, the kingdom was super happy. They're like, yay, our prince has returned. They threw him a big party. He had this whole big march through the streets, which, I mean, knowing how Death Knights look, didn't anyone kind of go, he doesn't look right?
Oh, just figured he was fighting creepy undead dudes, and he probably claimed some of their armor for himself.
Yeah,
I would have been slightly, all right. I would have been mildly concerned that his hair, was freaking white,
and his eyes are all blue and like glowy, and he's all like gray.
I'm not sure his eyes were full on glowing yet.
No,
I don't. I feel like, well, he has a hood on for most of that cinema. No, because he takes it off at the end. I don't think his eyes were glowing yet.
Oh, okay. Anyways, so he kind of marches down the main street into the Imperial chamber and kneels before his father with his Death Knights on either side, and tells his father that he no longer needs to bear the weight of his crown. And his father's kind of like, And if you haven't watched this cinematic, I highly recommend you go and find it, because it is one of my personal favorites. I know that Garrett loves the Wrath of the Lich King cinematic, but I love this.
And it still holds up really well. The Warcraft 3 cinematics they still look surprisingly good despite their age.
I agree. So basically tells his father he no longer needs to bear the weight of his crown, walks up to Tyrannus, right?
Yes.
Tyrannus?
Again, I'm not 100% sure that's accurate, but that's how I call him, for the same reason that Tyrannus sounds too villainy to me.
Yeah. But he uses Frostmourne and runs it through his father's heart, killing him instantly. And Garrett has mentioned that you can actually go to Undercity and see the throne room, and there's still the bloodstain on the floor of the throne room, which is so cool.
Yes,
in a very sad way, but super cool that kind of lives on in the Warcraft universe.
Yes, absolutely. That's where the crown rolled with some blood on it somehow from stabbing him through the heart. I don't know how blood got on it, but it's super cool in the cinematic. So go and find the bloodstain, and again, turn up the ambience.
So then Arthas unleashes the Scourge upon the capital city of Lordaeron, and he leaves Falric and Marwyn, who are his Death Knights, to oversee his forces in the city. He runs over to the Balnir farmstead, which is where Invincible is buried, and uses his necromantic powers to raise his steed into undeath, allowing it to serve as his mount once more. So now we have full-on Death Knight Arthas running his undead invincible steed, who not actually invincible, turns out.
Yeah. No, not at all. Although kind of now, because it's undead.
Kind of now, yeah.
Now it's
that's
kind
true.
of, yeah. Like, I don't know, immortal maybe would be a better name for it. But was this? I'm trying to remember, because there was a little side note about the Thessarian, which was one of his Death Knights that he raised.
Okay.
Okay, and so I believe it was during when he sent the Scourge on Lordaeron that they came across the Thessarian's mother, and Arthas forced the Thessarian to murder his own mother as a sign of loyalty, which is just so messed up.
Yeah, Arthas he's just full-blown evil now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, his which Death Knight was it? Sorry,
Thessarian.
He did it. So
yes.
I mean, it goes to show, loyalty to Arthas and evilness of Death Knights in general.
Yes, I mean it's so dark. I mean it's part of what I like about it. Like it just goes so beyond like the realm of like at a certain point. There's just no more black and white. I mean they've reintroduced that into Death Knights, because we do have good Death Knights more or less in the realm of the ones that we play as heroes. But like when it was getting going in Warcraft 3, like it's just so delightfully like metal album cover evil. I love it.
Yeah, so that's where we're going to leave Arthas and his story for now. Like I mentioned, we have a bit of a plan going forward for how we're going to tell these stories, but there is a whole lot to a lot of these characters. There are, like we mentioned, there's novels and stuff that have filled in the story in kind of the background and the in-between all of the different games. So if you are interested in more of the Arthas story, then a lot of what we've covered today is actually in the Christie Golden book, which is Arthas: Rise of the Lich King. Like I said, and not my personal favorite, but there are many people who say it's their favorite book. So Christie Golden, she is a fantastic writer. So it's just not my favorite story. That's all. but it's quite a good book. So if you have enjoyed our lore segment today, then I highly recommend that you go and read the Arthas story, because it goes into, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't necessarily touch on here. There's a love story triangle between him and Jaina and Kael'thas.
Yeah.
So there's that you can go and read. And
yeah, if you want a Warcraft, like romantic comedy, that's basically it. Like I can see the trailer
it
play
wasn't
out
very
in my
funny
head.
though, because both of her love interests ended up going super duper evil bad. So
yeah,
she has kind of terrible taste in men.
I feel like it's like the cheesy trope in like comedies and movies, but it's is this the Warcraft equivalent of like, I'm so unlikable, all my boyfriends turn gay, except in the case of Jaina, they all turn extremely evil.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for us to have to like take down raid boss Kalik at some point.
Oh, no, not Caligos is way too much of a Boy Scout. Like, Caligos is not going evil. I refuse to accept that.
Arthas was a paladin.
You saw the seeds like very early on. Like there were warning signs with Arthas. He was very Anakin Skywalker.
I know. I'm just saying. Jaina knows either how to pick him or turn him, one of the two.
Oh, jeez. Oh, poor Jaina. Poor freaking Jaina. But well, there's one last question that I think is important that I have to know the answer to, Jocelyn. A few episodes ago, it came up that one of my favorite things in the history of Warcraft is the opening cinematic to Wrath of the Lich King, and you had never seen it. Now that we have talked so much about Arthas, have you seen the Wrath of the Lich King intro cinematic?
I did. I went and watched it, and it was pretty epic. But I will say a lot of the Warcraft intro cinematics are amazing. But yeah, that one really made me want to go and play more in Northrend.
that one was special at the time. If you had been playing, and this isn't like me trying to like be like, ooh, I'm superior because I've been playing since vanilla. I'm just trying to paint a picture for you. Like at the time, like cinematics were a big deal because since they weren't making RTSs anymore, we didn't get a lot of them. We had two up until that point. We had the one for the launch of World of Warcraft, and we had the other for the launch of Burning Crusade. And if you were a fan, a lot of the talk, like a lot of the hype for the Wrath of the Lich King cinematic was based on what we assumed it would be, which was nothing what it ended up being. We assumed it was going to be like the World of Warcraft vanilla and the Burning Crusade cinematics, which were these kind of compilation of seeing all of these class fantasies play out in beautiful rendering. And so everyone was like, oh, we're going to finally see gnomes. Are we going to finally see these other classes that were skipped over in other expansion cinematics? And instead what we got was like this really focused vignette on just the big bad of the expansion. It was gone were these like super fast cut, compilations. So I just wasn't expecting it at the time. And it's so artfully done.
Yeah, it was very, very well done. And I loved just the kind of like story that it told, even just in this short little span of time. And it gave me goosebumps, and it wasn't even, new current content. I was just like, oh, I understand why Garrett loves this so much.
Yeah. It also made the ending of the expansion itself, like it came full circle because I hadn't thought about it for a while, and you get to the end of that raid and you're like, oh my God, this ties into the cinematic so well. Shivers. And we'll talk about that later when we actually discuss that. But anyways, let's wrap this up with an email. You can send your emails to fazpodcast, that's fazpodcast@gmail.com. And we have one Gurdred, a paladin from Airy Peak, writing in and clarifying some things from our most recent episode. First of all, saying, Garrett, other than reskinning Acaris or Acheris, I never know how to pronounce it. I think it's Acaris, which would have been nice. You shouldn't really complain. You just got your class haul 8 years early. I'm still complaining because it looks like it's 8 years old. Also, the Paladin and Warlock class mounts were removed from the Cataclysm revamp. Love the show. All the Joss love. On a sad face from me, Garrett, to hear that these quests were removed. That's sad. They were so cool.
It seemed like, and I think this is why a lot of people say that, Cata, before Warlords came out, of course, but Cata was their, least favorite expansion. Like, it was terrible. And I think it was because they removed a lot of stuff when they rebuilt the world, essentially, with the Cataclysm, with Deathwing Rising and, breathing fire all over stuff and really just, changing the world. So a lot of quest lines were either moved to different places or removed altogether. And though it kind of makes sense in the way that, if the whole entire world changes and, parts of the continent are lost, some are changed in ways that they'll never be the same again, these kind of big, large events, then, obviously would disrupt any sort of storylines that went through those areas. So it makes sense. But I think a lot of people were disappointed because I know we've also talked about the Zelda themed quest line in Angoro Crater that you and Katie, I think, went and did, and I will never be able to experience, sad face.
Yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of people hate on Cata, because they took out some of the cool existing stuff that had been there in vanilla.
I think a lot of us just hated on Cata because we were, again, much like the end of Draenor, without new content for a very long time. And as far as expansions go, it was very disjointed because you didn't have a new continent. You had all these,
right.
You had a continent's worth of zones, but they weren't connected. You didn't have that same kind of, at least something that's very important for me, that kind of sense of exploration. Like, they really show in my nerd card here, but like one of my favorite things in World of Warcraft, it was something that blew my mind when I first started playing, and something that still blows my mind to this day every time a new expansion comes out, is like cresting that ridge into a new zone and seeing the color palette completely shift to something new, seeing the theme change, and like feeling like you're discovering something. And in Cataclysm, it was just a bunch of portal jumping.
Yeah.
And while that is awesome, and please keep portals in, and please keep giving us flying towards the end of expansions, I'm glad that they're keeping them away from the beginning of expansions, because it really kind of kills the whole role play aspect, I think, of the world.
Yeah.
So
I can see that.
But overall, Cataclysm told a badass story, and there were some really cool things happening in Cata. And after Warlords of Draenor, it gets a bum rap, man. It gets a bum rap. Warlords of Draenor was the lamest expansion, like, in my opinion. That's just not my jam.
I agree, and I think a lot of people are definitely on the boo wad train.
yeah. But hey, out of it came Legion, which I think a lot of lessons were learned, and I think Legion is I think it might be my second favorite expansion, and that means a lot to me. Like, that's a big thing for me to come to terms with.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite, but it's also the one that I've kind of been experiencing the most of, I guess, and a lot of my friends are still playing, and I feel really connected to it in a way that I haven't previously, because, like, I mean, I was at like day probably 3 or 4. I was at max level in Draenor, but it just wasn't really the same experience as in Legion. So it's my favorite so far, but I also didn't experience Lich King at level, so
It was dope. It was so dope. And knowing how much you love PvP, if you had been around for at level Wintergrasp, like, would have blown your mind. Need to bring it back. They need to bring it back. Make it worth doing again, please.
Yep.
Just make it a battleground. But I think that's going to do it for this episode. We will be back next week with part 2 of Arthas, correct?
Yes, next week is going to be Arthas. More Arthas
Next week. All right.
More
cool.
Garrett fanboy.
I'll get my white wig. I don't actually have one.
Oh, man. I
but-
bet you could probably find one on Amazon, and I bet it could be here by next week.
I bet I could, but I'm not. I can't cosplay Arthas. I can't cosplay a male in World of Warcraft ever. They're just too ridiculously huge. I can't do it. I can't. It's impossible. My shoulders are not the size of Greyhound buses, so that's just impossible. But
I would love to see you just like put a box over your chest and a white wig and be like, I'm Arthas.
That's really dumb.
Yeah.
I love it. Maybe, who knows? If I get too much time the night before BlizzCon, who knows what'll happen.
Oh, now I have a plan to give you way too many beers and just put a box over you.
I'm Arthas Menethil.
Too bad Vine still isn't around, because I feel like that would be viral.
Yeah, and then maybe Justin or Brian will be there, and it'll really just turn into like a third person trying to do their Captain Morgan impression. So, anyways, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you, everyone. Keep sending your emails to fazpodcast@gmail.com. If you're an iTunes listener, keep dropping us 5-star reviews in the iTunes store. It really does help the podcast out a lot. This episode, thank you to T.Y. Thick, who said, really good. I'm serious, bro. That was the whole review. Thank you. Nice and to the point. And then also, Mobius, no last name given. The actual name of this person, like, written out in iTunes, which I'm glad that the Garrett thanking people meme is continuing. I appreciate it. So keep those reviews coming. Thank you, guys. You can subscribe to For Azeroth on iTunes, on youtube.com/AMoveTV, and just about anywhere else podcasts can be found. You can catch us live Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time right here on twitch.tv/AMoveTV or on alphageekmedia.com. But other than all that, Jocelyn, where can folks find your work?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. That's JOCE Plays. You can also find me right here on amove.tv every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Gamers In.
Awesome.
We've got Zelda is coming out in a couple of weeks, which is super exciting. Also, new Mass Effect coming shortly as well. So
I know that's the thing that's like making me think like maybe I can wait on the Zelda because I already have everything that could play Mass Effect, and I think I might wait on Zelda just because I have to buy a console. Like I don't have the Wii U.
Oh, you don't have the Wii U, right?
Yeah, I do not have the Wii U. So, and I have no plans to buy one at all. I'm just gonna skip it entirely and get a Nintendo Switch. I very much want to Switch. The only thing making me stop is like, well, I also really want to play Mass Effect, and those are two games that are going to be massive time vampires. So maybe just wait for play Mass Effect, so I don't have to spend an ass ton of money. Then after that is out of my life, then it's time to get the Switch, and hopefully by then I can actually find a Switch.
Yep, I am lucky in that I got my pre-order in both for the Switch and also for the Legendary Edition of Zelda. So I'm going to get my fancy map and all the extra fun bits, which is going to be awesome.
So jealous. So freaking jealous.
Yep.
It looks like an amazing game. I love the art direction for this one. God.
Well, I'll let you know if it's worth trying to line up at 6 a.m. for a Switch.
No, I think I've convinced myself. Mass Effect first. After that, find myself a Switch and play Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So Mass Effect comes out on March 21st. So I'm going to have to beat Zelda in 2 weeks so that I can then get in there on Mass Effect Day 1. But yeah, you're right. March is going to be really heavy. So if you are into general gaming and you're interested in Zelda and you're interested in Mass Effect, then I do highly recommend that you go and check out Gamers In.
Sweetness. Folks, you can find me on Twitter at Garrett Art. I'm on there usually yapping about really dumb things, like silly photos from fireside gatherings and other stuff. You can find all of the podcasts that I do over at amove.tv. I literally just put up a new episode of my solo show, The Angry Nerd. If you've listened to it in the past and you like it when I talk about cars, well, this was double the length of any show I usually do, and it was nothing but car talk. So go and check that out. If you don't like the car talk, maybe avoid it. So, anyways, that'll do it for this episode of For Azeroth. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, good luck, have fun, and Arthas is the best character. Nothing.
I don't think that there's anyone that I love in Warcraft nearly as much as you love Arthas. Like, I don't even know if I could pick like my favorite Warcraft character. Like, if you only let me pick one.
I mean, so much of it is tied up in nostalgia because that cinematic that you mentioned that blew your mind where he stabs his dad, like that was the point where I was just like, holy shit, what does Blizzard do? Like, I didn't know this was possible in RTS. I didn't know you could tell this kind of story. Like, yeah, if I really think about it, like, no, I don't want to be like Arthas. Like, he is whiny, as you said. Like, he's, it's very much a Darth Vader like kind of ripoff in ways. But it's so much of it is wrapped up with me becoming a Blizzard fanboy because of Warcraft 3. So.
I think maybe like if I had to pick one character, it would probably be Sylvanas. Probably.
Yeah, she's pretty dope.
It would definitely be somebody Elven, and she is like the coolest / longest Elven story.
Yeah.
In that, like she was alive through all the Warcraft stuff, and then now she's in World of Warcraft, and she's alive-ish, but had to do the whole overcoming Arthas freeing her mind thing, and then rose to be the leader of the Forsaken. Like, I mean, she was super cool living, and now she's super cool dead. So
yeah, it's that like that and Illidan. Those are your two coolest elves, right? I mean, Kael'thas is pretty dope, but he's dead.
Yeah, and Illidan, I think I'm kind of meh on Illidan.
Oh, I like Illidan, but again, he's pretty one note, For my people, for the world. Yeah,
I think that's why, like, he just, I found him, like, annoying and entitled, I guess, is the best word, when he was, like, in War of the Ancients kind of times. And then since then, I think he's been kind of, like, singularly focused on just the end is coming, the end is coming.
Everything
Sacrifice.
I do is justified because it's so bad. Well, with that said, I'm going to try and get this posted.
Civ is disowning me.
Illidan's cool, but be honest with yourself. He's not that cool. He's really one note. Like, he's
Careful, Civ's totally gonna disown you too.
I'm admitting my favorite character is Arthas, but he's really not. He's not that cool. Like, he's still, again, pretty one note. Like, he's just like evil for the sake of evil. Like, you know, it's fine. Like, I get how he got there, but for me, a lot of it is tied up in nostalgia. So there you go. He shoots his eyes shoot laser beams is what Civ is screaming in all caps in the chat room. So
Civ just thinks that's cool because now he gets to be a demon hunter and that's his coolest power. So see, if all the demon hunters can do it, it's not that cool when Illidan does it anymore.
If you're talking about Civ's demon hunter, you have to use her because it's a girl, so it's
true.
her greatest power.
Right.
Yeah. So there you go, Civ. Get your Civ. I want to see you cosplaying as your female demon hunter. If you really are if you're gonna back up your claims that Illidan is the best. So that's what it's gonna take.
I love this plan.
I don't think you can handle that much of your own midriff showing. I don't think you can. I'm not sure I can. But all right, I'm gonna end the stream. Thank you everyone for tuning in. See you later.
See you later, guys.